as you may remember from our very first class, I mentioned that people usually believe that the big words like love, family, marriage, motherhood, fatherhood mean the same throughout history. Of course, it's not the case, and they are very much connected with the social real reality and economical reality, and generally the kind of things that are unrelated to private life. So let's look at the way that the Victorians understood love. What did they mean when they talked of love? So, first of all, let me quote from the book, as Walter Houghton says. So, for the Victorians, love was passion tempered by reverence and confined to the home and marriage. This is quite interesting because what can be understood by this passion tempered by reverence? Passion, of course, means this kind of romantic infatuation, the legacy of romanticism, the fact that you were allowed or indeed expected to fall in love, to find your own spouse, to, well, someone whom your family would accept, but you were allowed to make this choice yourself. And you were expected to marry of love. Arranged marriages happened still, and in fact, it all depended on the amount of money involved. And the richer the family, the bigger the fortune involved, the more likely it was that the marriage would indeed be arranged, or at least supervised by the parents. And still, in the ideal, when the Victorians talk about love, it is free and it is chosen freely. So it is a kind of passionate feeling that overwhelms the human being, and this is the moment when people, the majority of people, start to believe that love is the supreme um, achievement of life. This is the most important thing. This is really that makes you human. This is really something that you should look for in life, because this is the highest thing in life if you find true love. But passion tempered by reverence, reverence meaning this kind of worship, this kind of respect and awe that one is supposed to feel to their spouse. So it's not a very sexual love. If the woman is supposed to be the angel in the house, you may ask yourself a question: what is then the role of man? And if you remember anything about angels, there are two kinds of angels basically. They are the lower grade of angels, the guardian angels, who look after humans. They were very popular in the Victorian popular art and painting. They are usually shown as kind of female creatures looking after children, guiding children. So, on one hand, you might expect that the Victorian angelic woman was this kind of angel, the guardian angel, a creature which is much higher morally than the man, who is like a child or like a mortal, mere mortal, who is in the care of this angelic, supernatural creature. But there are other angels in Christian mythology, and these are the higher angels, not the lowest possible guardian angels. These are the angels from the angelic choirs, and their only function in their existence is to worship God. So, would the man be God here if the woman was the angel? Was woman's mission in life to worship the man, to obey and extol and basically praise the man all her life. And if you look especially at the practice of Victorian culture, and something we already mentioned, the legal side of Victorian private life, men's function and men's rights were much, much greater than those of a woman. So, again, the difference between theory and practice. In theory, women and men were equal. They had different functions in the family and in the society, but both these functions were equally important and they had equal dignity, and basically they were equal. In practice, because in the division of spheres, the men's world was outside the home, they had all the power: legal power, financial power, even physical power. So they were much more likely to abuse their power against the women. So if we look at this image of the angel in the house, she might be theoretically the high moral creature guiding or guarding the man, and in practice pushed to be completely dependent and obedient and even worshipful towards the man. And now I would like to read to you two little excerpts from a Victorian poem by the most Victorian poet of them all, Alfred Lord Tennyson. And in 1847 he wrote a longer poem, a poem of I would say several pages, divided into so-called cantos, so like the songs. The title is The Princess, and this is a poem which mocks the idea of something completely preposterous and something completely stupid, that is a university for women. So this is a fairy tale kingdom, and the young princess refuses to marry. She breaks the engagement with the prince of the neighboring country, and with the help of her two ladies of the court, she opens a college for women. And the whole point is, of course, to get her back to the path of virtue. So in the first fragment that I'm going to read, we are going to hear the opening address, the opening lecture by one of those ladies, one of the professors of this women's college, which is of course about the division of sexes and how stupid the division of sexes and the division of spheres is. It's from the second canto, from line 170 onwards. And it goes like this. Two heads in council, two beside the hearth, two in the tangled business of the world, two in the liberal offices of life, two plummets dropped for one to sound the abyss of science and the secrets of the mind, musician, painter, sculptor, critic, more. So the idea is that men and women are equally talented, they have equal intellectual capacities, and if women get educated, they will improve the society as a whole. So their importance in the society is the same as the men, because they can double the amount of genius in the world. Sounds more or less plausible, but there is the other way of looking at it, and this is the second fragment from the fifth canto, from line 437 onwards, and this is actually from another speech made by the old king, the father of the spurned suitor, the man who is very aggressive and who threatens to invade the country of the young princess and her university and basically conquer her by force and force her to marry his son. And this is what he says, the old king. Men for the field and woman for the hearth, men for the sword and for the needle she, men with the head and woman with the heart, men to command and woman to obey, all else confusion. And this was something that probably most of the Victorian readers sympathize with. So men and women have completely different functions in life. Of course, based on the fact that women can bear children and men not. So their roles in the society, their roles in the family are completely different. They are equally important, but they are completely separate and they should not be mingled because this will not add anything else. Probably, if you read on, this was not what Tennyson thought himself. He believed in some sort of middle way, and probably when asked, he would believe that men and women should try to find the common ground, but they are very different. And the attraction between the sexes is really based on the difference. So the ideal of love in the Victorian society is really the exaltation and idealization of all the differences between men and women that you can find, resulting in the very strict social code that tried to rule the life of the Victorians. And one of the dualities, I mentioned the age of dualities, one of the dualities which sound quite strange to the modern person is the duality between love and sex. So love was holy, sex was bad, sex was sinful. This is probably something that we will discuss next week, the Victorian attitudes and problems with sexuality. But for this week, I would like to mention one last thing that Walter Houghton posits, namely something that most people nowadays associate with the term Victorian. That is hypocrisy.